Hello, good evening. Welcome to tonight's edition of Resistance TV. The local elections are going to take place next month, and this evening we've got a number of our candidates who are standing for the Resist and TUSC, the Trade Unionist and Socialist Coalition. Just sort of get their take on why they're standing and what they think some of the key issues are in their localities. We've got Dave Bolton, Lizzie Fletcher, Phil Wagstaff, Neil Aldridge, and Fari Madskanda is going to be standing for us in Coventry there. But let me just bring in you, if I may, first, Lizzie, in terms of your bid to get onto the local authority in your neck of the woods, which I think is Stroud, isn't it? What's the kind of key issues that you are confronting there, and what made you put yourself forward for the election this time around?
Well, it's in Stroud, and I think the reason that I was headhunted initially by the TUSC, they asked me if I would put my money where my mouth is and stand for district council. And I do wonder about the caliber of the people that are representing us and what their agendas are. I don't even know who my councillor is, my local district councillor is. And I thought, well, probably how many other people are in that position? So I looked and asked people, and nobody knew who the district councillor was. So I thought, well, perhaps, yes, I ought to change that. So, and went from there, really.
Okay, I mean, what's some of the key issues then, Lizzie, in your area then, in terms of what the local authority might be able to address?
Well, they are, a lot of them are being addressed, except for the fact that the district council have implemented 40% of cuts from the money they've received 40% lower money from central government, and they've implemented those cuts onto the people. So it's, that's something that we've got to fight against. There are all sorts of plans in place to use savings and to use and to force the government to give local councils more money. And we must fight on that. We shouldn't just meekly accept that we have to implement these cuts. And we've lost our Sure Start children's centres. We've lost adult care in the community. We've lost care for vulnerable people. We've lost so much mental health services, so many mental health services. If people go into crisis in any way, shape or form, their only form of support now is charitable or punitive, where they're punished for it.
We're sort of going back 100 years, it seems. Really, we're sort of moving to the days of the kind of, I know it's a bit extreme to say, but the old kind of poor laws and workhouses. I know we're not there yet, but it's that kind of mentality, it seems, is pervading the way in which public services are being delivered. I don't know whether you would agree with that, Lizzie.
Yes, I would agree with that. And the thing is that people are just sliding along with it. I know that so many people are propagandized, brainwashed. We're brainwashed from day one, the day we're born, to be consumers in a capitalist society. And we don't even think, we're not educated about politics, we're not educated about socialism or any other system other than capitalism. We all grow up to be consumers, and none of us realize how much of our lives is supported by socialist values and socialist policies, like the NHS, like public services. We used to own the gas, electric, water, public transport. There was so much that the people used to own. And who gave the government the right to sell all those things off to private companies that now just leech money out of it and don't provide the services that local people need? Here you can't get a bus. You can get a bus to one place. It takes you 3 hours to travel 15 miles.
Yeah, we've been on a kind of a one-way street for 40 years. I know we had a Labour government under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, but many of the changes that the Thatcher regime brought in were never changed back. And so consequently, the days of municipal socialism, which was such a feature when I first joined the Labour Party in the mid-1970s, and there was a proud tradition of that going back many years, has long gone now. And the deregulation. I mean, you mentioned public transport. The deregulation of the bus industry, public transport, back in 1985 by Nick Ridley was never reversed by New Labour. And so you're still living with the consequences of that today. Let me bring in Phil, because Phil, I think you're representing, or hoping to represent, a rural constituency as well, which presumably has similar problems to those outlined by Lizzie there in relation to public transport. And I'm sure there are many other issues as well that you might want to just tell us about now.
You're right. It's Norfolk. That is a rural constituency. Yeah. But the division, I'm standing in the county council elections, and the division I'm contesting is one of Labour's few hotspots. So one of the few places that has returned a Labour councillor, and that's Thetford West. So that's about as urban as you get in Norfolk.
Is it right? Yeah. It is. What sort of population is it then there?
Honestly, I don't know. Of the constituency, it's about 8,500, but the division, the whole town, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, no, it's a division. Really, I'm thinking about in terms of where you're going to represent. So yeah. So you'd be looking to about 8,000 people. Okay, yeah.
And it's undoubtedly one of the poorer areas of the town. But the county council carried out all the same cuts that Lizzie mentioned: sure start, adult care, mental health. Everybody goes on about how terrible mental health care is, but nothing's being done about it. Norfolk schools, which is a county matter, have historically underperformed. And if promises were gold, we'd be really wealthy.
Yeah.
Because nothing's happened. But the worst thing is that there's been a complete collapse in the council housing. The housing list grows and grows. And the main target, it seems to me, of the district council is to keep the rates, the council tax down as low as possible. And the county council, apart from using adult care closures and things like that for political aims to give themselves a little bit of publicity, after that, nothing happens. Nothing's said. Yeah. We had an excellent care home in this division that even by the county council accepted was a good standard, an excellent standard. But the county council had made a company to look after its adult care. And guess what? The adult care had to make savings, so they closed it down.
Yeah.
And that's just disgraceful. There's no need for this. And the Labour, as far as I can see, Labour, which is in a minority, being so, apart from make noises during election time, do nothing about it.
There's no real
certainly
Yeah.
I mean, they held a campaign, one of their very few, about Sure Start, the closure of Short Start schools or outfits, and it's the amount of effort that went into it was pathetic. I was a member of the Labour Party at the time, so I have intimate knowledge. We tried very hard, but didn't succeed. Indeed.
I think that's a feature right across the country, really, and I think that's sort of that fervour that was such a feature of the Labour Party back in the day has kind of been dissipated to a large extent.
Oh, absolutely.
I think in many ways local Labour councillors have become very managerial rather than necessarily political.
I mean, as I remember, the membership was always saying, "When are we going to do something? Why don't we have?" Nothing ever happened. Nothing.
Well, one of the things that New Labour was very good at was taking the politics out of politics in local governments anyway. And,
absolutely.
It's, I mean, I think sometimes people forget why they are there. That's elected members. I mean, they forget that they're there to stand up for and represent, the electorate, the people that put them there. And, the political party, if they're standing for one, that actually whose banner they're standing underneath, as it were. But often when people get in, they end up just becoming, bureaucrats, really. And
absolutely. Absolutely,
not very good at it, really, because that's not their forte. I mean, they're lay people. They've got professionals who are professional bureaucrats. And
well, so I mean, the last time Labour was in charge of the county council, which is a coalition, I think, with the Liberals or the Greens, they were all in favour of a unitary authority for the for the counties. But they hadn't consulted anybody.
No.
It was just the Labour group at County Hall decided.
Yeah, and we perhaps might get into the structure of local government a little bit later on in the discussion if we have time, but because it is a bit of a Byzantine system that is complicated, and the two-tier structure is.
I don't think there was any politics. There wasn't any politics involved in it. It was just dazzled by the amount of money in Cambridge.
Yeah, well, indeed, yeah. Let me bring Fari in now then, because Fari, you are representing or hoping to represent an urban area, I believe, in Coventry. Tell us a little bit about your backstory and what the issues are that you think you're going to be confronting in Coventry.
Thank you very much for hosting me today, Resist TV. The ward I'm going to represent, it's Woking. It's in Coventry. And the population there, it's about 17,000. But apparently, there are only 13,000 who are registered voters.
Right.
And for the past three past elections, only 3,600 have been voting.
Yeah.
So this particular time, is I'm pushing. I've been working in that area as a care assistant, and I know the challenges which elderly people face, and I'm advocating for the scrapping of a 15-minute visit, because normally when you visit elderly, for you to be there for only 15 minutes, it's completely not workable at all. No. And this is what the social care is trying to put across.
And Fari, this is the social care. Let me just ask you a question about that. Is it run by the private sector? Has it been farmed out to a private company, or is it still being run by people who are directly employed by the council?
No, it's run by private companies. But those private companies are directed by the council. So
yes, of course,
they work. Yeah, they work even the time the council assess and then tell you that you have to spend 15 minutes or 30 minutes. But in real terms, if you go and visit the clients, it's unmanageable. You can't be in a position to prepare just a cup of tea within 15 minutes and possibly to care them, wash them and the like. So I am advocating that the 15-minute should be scrapped completely. We should possibly start at 30 minutes or an hour, whatever the sort of the funding which is there. And also we have got issue with youth centers which have been closed. So people whom I have been speaking to within the ward have said our youths are nowhere. They are in most cases they are on the streets. So they would want them possibly to go back into community centers where they can interact with their peers and in a position possibly to get some skills from there. We also have the libraries have been closed again. And we wonder why the Labour Party is the controlling council here have been putting the policies of Tories, where they've been cutting all the services which are meant to benefit the local people. And you speak to the local councillors here, they will tell you, no, we can't do that because otherwise we'll be sent into prison. They don't have a spine. They don't fight for. They think for themselves. That's why I am really advocating that I would want to be there and be the voice for the people of Woking.
Yeah, well, best of luck, Fari, with that. I mean, and you make a really good point about the fact that the social care is in a real crisis now, and the sort of example that you gave of 15-minute calls, I think, is pretty endemic, really, across the country. I know certainly in my local area that's a common feature. But back in the day, of course, the care workers were all employed by the local authority, and they were given much more time to spend with their clients, with service users, and we're able to build up a good, strong relationship, a rapport with them. Whereas now it's very, very different. I've got personal experience of that as well, because my mother-in-law, I mean, she's receiving care at the moment, and often, you know, the care workers are just so pushed for time that, you know, they come in, they're out, they're in and out in no time really, you know, and she's very frail, and they're supposed to provide like an evening meal call, for example, and you know, and sometimes they'll come as early as 3:30 to do this evening meal, as it were, and putting her to bed at you know, at 5 o'clock in the evening. There's a call. I mean, it's just, you know, it's totally disorganized, and it's all about the bottom line and raising as much money as they possibly can, using public services, social care in particular, as a cash cow. But let's bring in Dave Bolton now and just sort of hear Dave's story, and tell us a bit about where you're standing, Dave, and what some of the issues are there. Can we hear Dave?
Yeah, I'm standing in North East Lincolnshire for Grimsby.
Yeah.
In Grimsby, a ward in Grimsby.
Right.
I'm a former Labour councillor.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, mate. Yeah. Oh, we've lost you now.
Can you hear me?
Got you now, Dave. Yeah. Far away.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you,
Dave. I don't think he can hear us.
Hello?
We can hear you, Dave.
Hello?
Lincolnshire's a long way away.
Yes.
Yeah,
broadcasting from Lincolnshire.
Former Labour.
Oh.
Okay.
I think we might have lost Dave.
I'm a former Labour councillor.
Ah, got you. Yeah, go on, mate. Yeah.
Yes.
No, we're
not
getting a great.
Perhaps we'll come back to him.
Councillor.
Oh.
Keep going, Dave. No, I think we'll have to come back to you, Dave. Let me come back to you, Dave, and we'll go to Neil. Neil, have we got Neil this time? Can we hear you, Neil?
I think I'm having the same. I'm having the same problem as Dave, like with hearing.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay. No, obviously not.
Oh.
No,
well, I
don't know if. Well, I can hear you now.
Ah, go on then. Yeah, tell us your story then, Neil. Where you're standing and what the issues are.
I'm sorry, I can barely hear your question, but yeah. I guess really, my campaign is to infuse, I would say, ordinary people to sort of fill these positions within the council. Just looking at the selection of candidates, for example, you know, I think we should have like a few kids in here, like 18-year-olds, sort of deciding what the youth should be doing and how money should be spent, you know, on younger people. I'm not being ageist, but the positions are filled by sort of a privileged class out here. You know, they seem entitled to be sort of running the show for others and deciding how we should all be subjected to cuts, you know, to cuts to services, to financial cuts, to increases in council tax and other costs. So, I mean, that's my campaign really. On my flyer, it tells you how to apply to be a councillor candidate, for example, which in reality takes 10 minutes, you know. Download the form, fill the form in, get it back to the council in time, you know. So that's I mean, my policies are sort of to support more sort of affordable and social housing development, to restore services like children's centres, where we were campaigning a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, when the Tory-dominated council decided to shut down a lot of the Shore Start centres, and sell off the buildings. and we've no idea what they've done with the money from the sale of the buildings. I mean, even like cutting down, they shut down public libraries just for the sale of the building. So you know, we're very rural. We have like a bus passed through the village for about a 15-mile radius. So it just seems like that they're turning the thumb screws all the time, you know, trying to make things difficult. And I don't know, you know, I don't know what the local councillors are actually doing. You know, they seem, I think they're unaccountable because people are generally disinterested. But you know, if there was some positive action, I feel like they should be spreading the news, telling us, you know, what is good in the world at the moment. You know, what is good in the community, and what they are doing. But we rarely hear from them. So. So again, as much as I would be happy to fill a position, it's going to be very difficult out here. I mean, I'm flying under the radar. There's no mention of socialism on my literature because of the association or the misassociation or the preconception
socialism is a
with the
dirty
locals
word.
here. I can barely hear you. I can barely hear anyone, to be honest with you. So.
Yeah. Sorry about. Well, that's a real shame. I mean, obviously, we're trying to rehabilitate the kind of the notion of socialism because clearly it is the future, and we are facing a massive existential challenge as a planet, which is being destroyed by a capitalist culture, and it's only through collective action that we're going to be able to rise to the challenge of climate change, I think. And local authorities have an important role to play in that in their own way, in the some of the decisions, you know, that they make. And obviously they can't change the world on their own, but there are steps that they can take which obviously will make a difference. Let me bring Lizzie back in, just in terms of some of those points there that Neil was making there, Lizzie, about our democracy and not really being fit for purpose, and councillors not really being properly accountable, nobody knowing who they are.
I agree with everything that he said. You know, the thing is that people are by and large uninterested in politics until they need help, and then they discover that their long-held belief that we still had a functioning NHS, that we still had adult care services, that we still had help for people in any situation. We don't have any of those services, but a skeleton of those services left. And unless we pull together and fight together, then we are never going to regain any of those services. And, you know, I think, yes, I try to speak to people without talking politics. I just say to them, you know, how much do you think it would cost if you broke your wrist and you didn't have the NHS? How much do you think it would cost for you to get your wrist fixed? Or do you think that you would live forever with a broken wrist and be unable to work because of that? And they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm £15,000. Do you have £15,000? No, they'd say. Well, you'll have to live with your broken wrist then, won't you? You know, and just make people think about the fact that all of the services that we provide, you know, as a people to support other people and ourselves, if we find ourselves in such a predicament, are all socialism based, aren't they?
Well, indeed. And I mean, I guess as a role as a local councillor, I mean, to sort of pick up on that point that Neil was touching on there, I mean, it's very much an elected community champion, isn't it, really, to be the voice of the community in the council?
That's what you'd think. But if you ever bothered to go into your district council or indeed county council, you would be shocked. Quite frankly, you would be shocked at the caliber of the people there and what they propose and what their agendas are. You know, it's very strange. I know that a lot of people say, well, the only people that can afford the time to participate in local politics are the ones with no jobs, either because they've retired or because they've got enough money that they don't have to work. So yes, it's going to be overpopulated with people who are able to take the time, but they're not even doing it in a nice way. They're doing it to further get more money, perhaps, or to make sure that their friends are okay, and they're not concerned about the ordinary people at all.
What's your thoughts on that, Phil? Has that been your experience of the way the local authority that you are hoping to get
Absolutely.
onto operates?
I mean, as you were saying before, I don't think there's any politics involved in it anymore as far as the Tories and Labour. It's just management. If you haven't got enough money, then you just put up with it and you cut whatever you cut. And I think the idea is that the ordinary person has no services, probably will have no job, is a complete and utter indifference to the major parties. They're just, as long as things keep ticking over, whether you continue to suffer, is no interest in them whatsoever. I think it's going to take a lot more than electoral politics to win back what we've lost. The trade unions are going to have to.
Yeah,
trade unions will have to get involved in this.
I mean, I suppose it's the electoral politics is just one element, isn't it? I guess.
Absolutely.
We need to be mobilising people on the ground.
We need to take advantage of this opportunity of a local election to try and get as many people out there as possible to realise that all of our lives are going to be drastically altered with the environmental problems and issues that we face, with the ending of lockdown, with the changes in people's jobs. You know, I was at the Labour Party the other day. We're defending the jobs in the nuclear industry and the weapons industry. So why are we basing our industries on war and extinction of our species?
Very good question, and certainly something that I think it's not a direct responsibility, obviously, of local authorities, but when you have a platform, it's important to kind of use it, I think, to raise those issues.
Well,
let me just have one more go at Lizzie, see whether we can get Dave Bolton. I don't know if Gaz can try and get Dave back. Dave, can we hear you this time?
Can you hear me?
Oh, we can, mate. Can you hear us?
Oh, that's good. Yes, I can.
Yeah, tell us about your story then, Dave, if you can, because you were saying you were a Labour councillor, and so that's quite interesting. So tell us a little bit about the ward where you're standing and what why you're standing for us this time rather than sticking with the Labour Party.
Yeah, I was in the Labour Party for 35 years, and I was a Labour councillor I'm still a town council, a parish council, but a district councillor for 10 years, and also in the cabinet. So
So you've got quite a lot of experience then of local government.
Yeah, I have a lot of experience, but as you know, what's gone on with the Labour Party and everything, I don't agree with it, and I've got principles like everybody else, and I just can't support the party any longer. Issues around North East Lincolnshire are similar to what I've heard, but we're one of the most deprived areas in the country, and they've been hit hard. And this year, they've announced another 5% increase on the council tax. This is the third year in a row. And they've also announced for the next 3 years, there's going to be a 5% increase. And my biggest concern and TUSC concern is that we're going to be paying for COVID. And this is why I'm fighting in North East Links. So the costs are not passed on to the ratepayer. And we should be lobbying government for me to finance the COVID. Other issues I heard Liz say about the Sure Start centres. We've got 6, and they're all closing this year. And we'll need to fight for that as well, because it is a Conservative council now. You know, I was a councillor until 3 years ago, and we lost because of Brexit and everything else. And I went on the doors and I took some abuse from our own supporters. And there's a lot of issues, similar issues, the finances, and 1.2 million people are in direct poverty, have increased their debt. 1 in 3 universal credit are also in debt. It's getting worse and worse. After all this COVID business is finished, I think they're going to hit us hard, and we need to fight to stop them. And that's what I'll be doing, along with the other.
Well, very much so. More power to your elbow, and obviously lobbying government for more resources is crucial. But there are obviously things that local authorities can do where they can protect the vast majority and introduce a redistributive council tax system to ask the wealthy people to shoulder the burden. I mean, local government finance is broken. It needs to be completely revisited. But as things currently stand, that will require primary legislation, and we are where we are. And so I think it's important that councillors use the tools at their disposal.
Can I just?
Yes, go on.
Can I just say that we're just a small authority? North East Links is a small authority, and we've lost £84 million in money from the government in the past 10 years.
No, indeed.
And it's just continuing and continuing. Austerity is dead, but it isn't. It's carrying on, and we need to fight it.
We do. I mean, and absolutely, our austerity is kind of continuing, and you've got the Chancellor talking about there's going to have to be a reckoning, which is nonsense, because that's not required. In fact, as a currency issuing nation, there's no real impediment on the government in terms of finding the resources. So that is a ruse, I'm afraid to say, which is is going to hurt working class people predominantly. And it's really important, I think, that we do explode some of those myths, and that we use our positions to argue for a different approach, really. But as I say, on the local government front, being a local elected community champion is something which I think local councillors should be, not become the sort of a spokesperson for the council. You're a long-standing standing councillor now, actually, aren't you? Existing councillor. I mean, what's your sense of how councillors have conducted themselves over the last 30 or 40 years in your experience then, Dave?
I can only speak from my own experience. It's just that, the big part is they toe the line and they have to follow policy. You know yourself, Chris, that we've all had to follow policy and not rock the boat or whatever. But now since Starmer and them took the back, I felt I couldn't stay in. I've got to come outside and fight, because Starmer and co will be exactly the same, or if not worse, than the Tory government. At least you know where the Tory government stands, with the Labour Party you don't. And so I felt that I had to come out. And fight.
Can I ask Dave Bolton a question, please?
Go on, mate. Yeah, of course. Far away, Phil.
Dave, when you were still within the Labour group of councillors, how much discussion about policy was there? Was it simply somebody saying, well, head office says it's this and you've got to follow it? Or did you actually discuss it?
No, I can't say it was like that. No. We did do. We spoke locally. We met with communities and the community groups, etc. And we did discuss policy, but of course the financial side of it is completely different.
And so, if the local community gave you, if the local community gave you an opinion that was different, did you change your policy accordingly, or you just say tough?
I think Dave's lost the.
I don't think you heard
it's
that.
not tough or anything like that. I did. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you, mate.
Yeah.
We can hear you. There's just a bit of a delay on the line, I think.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I'm so far away, as somebody said. No, I did. We did listen to people, and we did listen to people, but of course, we have to come to a collective decision, and then you have to stand by that decision. We had arguments within group, like everybody does. We had arguments, but overall, the majority rules and Labour regulations state that you cannot, if you buy a group, you have to follow that decision. But outside, I have to follow that decision, and I can fight now and stand up for the people.
Yeah, for me, that's the joy of standing for the TUSC.
Hello?
Yeah. Go on, Lizzie,
That's the joy for me of standing for the TUSC and Resist, is that I am my own person and I am going into the district council elections to represent other people like me. And I will be fighting those cuts and refusing to implement them. And I will be coming up with different strategies that we can employ to tide us over until we fight for more money from central government. It's taxpayers' money. It's our money. So why, it's completely, it seems to me that it's completely corrupt that we are paying out, ordinary people are paying out every day to survive in austerity measures, while the people in the government and the people in local councils, don't forget, they don't get paid, but they get a good allowance, and the staff in the councils are on more than MPs. Some of them, they're all on.
Well, the senior staff are, but of course a lot of local government workers are low paid and deserve a big pay rise, of course. But the people doing the work like that Farai is doing, for example, although he's in an externalised organisation. But
in my local district council, the people who do all the work are the ones that are put upon. They've lost their jobs. They've taken all the managers out of the assisted living accommodation. Luckily, as a council, we still have our council housing. We still hold all our council housing, and we are the only town in the county. I don't know how many of us there are across the country, but there aren't many of us anymore. Most people have outsourced their housing portfolios, but we have our own. But still, the government stuck us. They said that we could sell the council housing off to people who lived in them, which sounded great to the people who lived in them, but then we couldn't build any more. We had to send the revenue that we received from that back to central government, and we didn't. So in the end, we had to opt out of it, and that was a Labour achievement, I believe. I believe it was.
That's changed now, though, Lizzie, of course, because ironically, it was the Tories who lifted the cap on the housing revenue account. So now local authorities, and one of the things I'm hoping that our candidates will be arguing for, and certainly as part of the TUSC programme, Trade Unionists and Socialist Coalition's programme, and ours, of course, Resists, is to really focus in on housing and to be demanding that there is a renaissance in council housing, because now local authorities, yes, new build properties after 15 years start to attract a right to buy discount, but there is no impediment now on local authorities finding the resources to build the houses that people need. So the housing crisis that we now have across the country could be addressed by local authorities, but they're not being. That's what's frustrating.
That's right.
There is something else that I've thought of that I think that rural counties are particularly going to suffer from, is the introduction of electric vehicles. I know it seems a bit strange, but private vehicles are really important in most counties now, because the bus service, to all intents and purposes, doesn't exist. So when all these, and certainly in Norfolk, the majority, a large number anyway, of the car drivers are elderly, because it's very much a retirement county.
The government have just opened up an option for councils to get re-involved with the local transport services, buses, etc.
Right. Well, that again is another area that we should be definitely pushing. But Fari, you wanted to just come in there and just say something.
Thank you, Chris. I wanted to ask Dave, what is this fear with the councillors about going to prison? It meant something which is beneficial to the community. What is this fear? Why are they so afraid of going to prison? What would the government do to take them to prison because they've supported the communities they represent?
Do you want to come back on that, Dave? Not sure Dave can
Dave is
give it back.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
my question.
There used to be a situation where local councillors could be surcharged if they overspent.
No,
that's
I don't.
But not MPs.
No, Dave. Dave, can you hear us now?
No, you lost me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, mate. We've got you, but far away, Dave. Yes, we can hear you, Dave. Carry on. Can you respond to Fari's point?
I don't think he can hear us.
No, I don't think so. No.
I think that.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
You can't hear me.
No, I think we're just going to have to press on, mate. Without, and I think the connection's
Hear me.
too bad.
I think there's a song about that, isn't there?
Yeah, I think there might be. Yeah. Yes. Indeed. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, we've got about 15 minutes left. What would perhaps if we just maybe just go around the room, and obviously the connection is not great with Dave, so I don't think we're going to get you back, Dave, in a sort of format that people are going to be able to understand or hear you. But just perhaps if we could maybe just go around and ask each of you in turn in the last sort of few minutes about what it is you think or why people ought to be supporting you in your local elections. Neil, can you hear us? Would you want to sort of give us your kind of closing remarks about why you're standing and what you hope to encourage people to vote for you to do? I don't think Neil can hear us either, can he?
No, he always looks like that.
That's
Oh, that's a shame.
It is a shame. Fari, then, perhaps just come back to you then. Fari, maybe if you could just sort of tell us in the last few minutes then, I mean, what, if you had a message to your electors about why they should be supporting you, what would that be?
Right. Thank you very much, Chris. I'm saying on the 6th of May, we have got the opportunity to check for a change to come in. Labour Party and the Tories have disseminated the communities and they've made people suffer. We are saying with a strong voice, these things should change and people should be benefiting. The communities should be taken care of. This is public money and it should not be in Westminster only for them to benefit. It should be channeled down to the communities so that we have all communities which have been closed open and all libraries open. So I'll be advocating for such things to happen and to be voicing our voices more high in the chambers to make sure we are heard in representing our own people. Thank you.
Here, Fari.
Good for you, Fari. And Phil, what would your closing comments be then in terms of a message?
Well, I agree with Fari. I mean, what it is, I mean, if you just want the councillors who are going to sign off on the cuts and just continue just as you are. Labour or Tory, they're all going to sign off on the cuts. But I would certainly be saying you've got to fight the cuts all the way, and you just keep fighting it. You never stop. You've got to demand your rights. And I would be calling on everybody to come out and campaign against it, create as much fuss as possible about it, not just give in. Where the other parties just have a little campaign, that's the end of it. Yeah. And then they just sign off and just close, and that's it. No, as you were saying, you can reorganise things so council housing you can be started again. You can change the council tax system so those who can afford it can pay more, and those who can't afford it can pay less. But I don't see anybody else interested in doing that. That's certainly what I want to see.
Well, good for you, Phil, and certainly in terms
Phil.
of mobilising the community. I mean, and there's some looking back in history. It's got to go back a little way, but there are some great figures in local government who did just that. I mean, you only have to look to places like Liverpool, to Lambeth, and people like Ted Knight, who absolutely mobilised the community and got thousands of people actually on the street. And in the end, although they did get surcharged, because local authorities councillors could be surcharged in those days, in the early 80s under the Thatcher government. He did get an extra £40 million out of the government, although he ended up being pushed out of office himself. And there were many, many examples like that. I mean, Claycross, just up the road from where I live in Derbyshire, they mobilised the community. So it can be done. I mean, it's been done in the past, it's been done again. And so it's great to hear you talking in those terms, Phil. And Liz, I've got the final word then this evening. Just to tell us a little bit in closing summary about why people ought to vote for you and what your key messages are.
Well, I don't want to be elected because of what I can do for myself. I don't want to be elected because of what I can do for my party or anyone. I want to be elected so that I can change lives. So as far as I can, local lives, people in the community, and not just those people or those people. Every person in the community, including so many things have just gone awfully wrong, and everybody is just attacking those they feel that are beneath them, while they're being attacked, they feel, from above. And there is no need for any of it. There's a lot to be said for kind and compassionate politics and kind and compassionate communities. And I hope that anybody who believes in those things, I'm part of Extinction Rebellion, which started here in Stroud. I'm part of Make Ecocide a Law in Stroud. I believe in Community R4C, who opposed the incinerator that was imposed on us by Cyril, what's his name? Can't remember. Cyril Smith, was it? A very large fella came down from Westminster and imposed a huge, disgusting incinerator on us. Instead of Stroud District still does, has the best recycling rates in the entire country. We've been on all the national media about it, and we are now reduced to, we are the only district council that are still doing recycling. All the others, it's all going to the incinerator to be burned.
Yeah. And
so I just hope that people start to wake up and realise that we all go together in this, and it's all about community supporting each other and providing a level of support for everybody, from our most vulnerable to our most independent.
Well, there's an old saying that together anything is possible, and our job is to mobilise people, encourage people, inspire people to recognise the strength of their common endeavour. That when we work together, we are capable of achieving great things. So thanks very much anyway to everybody who's joined us this evening for this brief discussion about the local elections and the opportunity to meet some of our candidates. So real apologies that the connection weren't too great, but let me thank Dave Bolton. I know we were struggling to hear Dave, Lizzie Fletcher, Phil Wagstaff, Neil Aldridge, and Fawzi Madsakanta, who is going to be standing for us in the local elections. And we've got between us, the Trade Unionists and Socialist Coalition and the Resist Movement for a People's Party, well over 300 candidates standing in different local authorities up and down the country. The elections will be taking place in the first Thursday in May. So please look out and see whether or not you've got one of our candidates standing in your neck of the woods, and please lend them your support if you do. Next week, we have Alexis Sale joining us for a discussion. So if you're free on Wednesday of next week, join us at 7 o'clock, and we'll be speaking to Alexis and getting his thoughts on the political landscape as it currently stands today. Thanks for watching this evening, and good night.